I hope you can see the screen now.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you for the nice introduction. My name is Aiswarya. Today, I'll be talking about two ongoing studies that we are doing right now. First one is AI powered fault tolerance, and the second one is maturity assessment model for data pipelines. So, let's start with the first study, which is AI powered fault tolerance in data pipelines. Before going into the details, first let's see what are data pipelines. Data pipelines nothing but a
Aishwarya,
complex.
sorry. Can I stop you for just a second? Can you turn on your
Yeah.
camera so people can actually see you?
Yeah, and I think the camera is already turned on.
Do you see yourself?
Yeah, I can see myself.
Okay, we cannot see you, so I don't know if others
Oh,
can see you. So that's
uh,
why we are interested in seeing you as well as hearing you.
I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened.
Can you stop the camera and start it again?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, no luck yet, but
No, but now I can see myself too.
okay. Now then we'll have to do without a camera. But thanks for trying, Aishwarya.
No, thank you. I'm really sorry that it didn't work. Okay. So to start with, let's see what are data pipelines. So data pipelines are nothing but a complex chain of interconnected activities that starts with a data source and ends in a data sink. And sorry, hello. Okay, so it can process data in multiple formats from distributed data sources with minimal human intervention. It can accelerate data lifecycle activities and it can enhance productivity in data driven enterprises. However, fault in a single step of the data pipeline has cascading effects as they are interconnected activities. So, this leads to significant performance degradation in data intensive systems. Therefore, we require continuous monitoring and fault detection mechanism. So this is a conceptual data pipeline model that we have developed. Many of you might have already seen this model before, but for the people who are seeing this for the first time, I'll explain what is this conceptual model. And so our conceptual model is basically constituted of two fundamental elements called nodes and connectors, and each of these elements has their own capabilities, which we have named as node level capabilities and connector level capabilities. So the blue boxes that you see here are nothing but the nodes, and the arrows that you see in between are known as the connectors. And the node level capabilities are nothing but the data generation, data collection, data storage, data ingestion, and so on. And connector level capabilities are sending alarm, authentication, validation, fault detection, and mitigation. I'll quickly explain the data flow in this conceptual model. It starts with the data generation step where the different data sources like a base station, a car, a mobile phone, or a camera, or many other data sources can produce or generate data which is collected by a data collection agent. This data collection agent, in order for this data collection agent to collect the data from the customer premises, it has to authenticate itself. That's why you can see a small green box labeled as A on top of the connector. Once the data is collected, it's stored in the raw data storage from where it is ingested into multiple data pipelines according to the use cases, and then it is extracted and labeled. We have this data labeling step here because most of the companies that I have worked with were using supervised machine learning algorithms for training their AI model. So once the data is labeled, it is stored in the refined data storage from where it is taken as input to the machine learning models. And the machine learning models are trained with this data, and then it's evaluated to check if a satisfactory performance is achieved or not. If it is achieved, then it's served or deployed in production. And once this AI model or the machine learning model is deployed in production, it will also start generating the data, and basically the loop continues. So in order to make this conceptual model robust, we have included two connector level components known as fault detection and mitigation. So fault detection is marked with F and mitigation is marked with M. You can see this in all the uh, connectors above and below all the connectors in this conceptual model, because we have to find out the fault that happen at each stage of the data pipeline. And in order to implement automated recovery of this data pipeline, we have something called mitigation strategy, because simply detecting the fault alone will not solve the problem. We need a mechanism to ameliorate the impact of the fault on the data pipeline. So we have something called mitigation strategy. And the sending alarms is a default mitigation strategy that is adopted by almost all the use cases that we have studied. So whenever a fault is detected, immediately an alarm is sent to the data pipeline responsible or data flow guardian or whoever is responsible for the entire data pipeline. And then the corresponding mitigation strategy is invoked, and the data pipeline will not fail completely. So, in order to implement automated recovery of the data pipelines, we first modeled something called a rule-based system, where we identified typical faults and the corresponding mitigation strategies by analyzing 4 different data pipelines from 2 different companies. And then we have categorized the fault according to the stage where they are encountered. Then we also found the mitigation strategies that are taken by the companies whenever these faults are detected. We also have something called sending alarms as a separate column here. It's just to show that most of the companies are using the sending alarms as a default mitigation strategy. So I'm not going into the details of the faults and the corresponding mitigation strategies. This is already published paper, so if any of you are interested, I can always share that paper. Yeah. So that is that. And we also implemented this automated data pipeline recovery using this rule-based system. We identified typical faults in a data pipeline and the corresponding mitigation strategies. And with the help of 2 connector level components called fault detection and mitigation, we implemented this automated data pipeline recovery. For incorporating, we actually wanted to incorporate these fault detection mitigation at each stage of the data pipeline, but it was certainly not achievable within a short period of time due to practical difficulties. So what we did was, although we studied 4 different data pipelines, we chose a single data pipeline from them, and then we selected a small slice of it and implemented this fall detection and mitigation over there. So this is the data pipeline that we chose, and where you can see a red box here where we implemented this fall detection and mitigation. We were able to save like 32,453 records over 30 days using this automated data pipeline recovery. But yeah, there is a limit. I explained all this just to show that there is a huge limitation for this rule-based method. The limitation is that we cannot anticipate all the faults at various stages of the data pipeline. And also, it's really hard to create an exhaustive list of all the faults and the corresponding mitigation strategies. In order to solve this problem, we have something called AI-powered fault tolerance. So this is a study that we are doing right now. And we are doing this I am trying to implement this 4-stage model at one of the software center companies. So this 4-stage model actually start with anomaly detection, and the second phase is fault identification, third phase is mitigation strategy recommendation, and the fourth stage is automated mitigation. So in the first stage, which is anomaly detection, anomalies in the data are detected, and with the help of the data analyst or data scientist, we check if this anomaly is actually a fault or not, because not all the anomalies are false. Faults are a subset of the anomalies. So if it is a fault, it will be logged by the data scientist, and a data set is formed. The data set from this phase is used as input to the next phase, which is fault identification. In this phase, the fault will be identified automatically, but the mitigation strategy will be identified by the data scientist, and That person will update the data set with their fault and the corresponding mitigation strategy. And this updated data set is used as input to the third phase, which is mitigation strategy recommendation. In this stage, the mitigation strategy will be recommended by this AI model, but the mitigation strategy should be implemented by the data scientist or whoever is working with the data pipeline. And then in the fourth stage or the final phase of this model, the system by itself implements a mitigation without the help of the data scientist. I'm not claiming that we can solve all the problems using this four-stage model, but at least we can try to, we can start with a set of problems that can be easily identified and for which the mitigation strategies are already there. And over the time, this system will be more mature enough to mitigate the faults by itself and thus prevent the data pipeline from the failure. So that was the end of that study. Unfortunately, I'm not able to show the results from this particular study because I have not verified it with the people at the company with which I'm collaborating with. So far, we have completed the first two phases, and we are looking for more use cases with which I can verify whether this model works or not. Now, moving on to the second one, which is maturity assessment model for data pipelines. First of all, why do we need a maturity assessment model? It can help to assess the organization in assessing their current data pipeline maturity level, and can also help to understand the impediments at each of these stages. It also helps to create an extensive roadmap to improve organizational data pipeline maturity in a very structured manner. So coming on to this maturity assessment model that we developed it based on how different organizations consistently implements data pipelines to serve their use cases. So this is a study that we did together with 3 companies from where we have explored like 6 different data pipelines. And we identified 5 determinants that can be used to evaluate the maturity of the data pipelines. And the model comprises of 5 maturity levels from ML1 to ML5, where each maturity level has a specific set of determinants which can be used to distinguish between different levels. So now let's see what are the determinants of maturity. So the first one is security, which refers to how the information gathered is safeguarded. And the second one is scalability. So with the significant increase in the data volume, it demands scalable data pipelines. Otherwise, the data pipeline will not be able to handle the huge volume of the data that is coming in. And then the third determinant is resiliency, which refers to the ability to adapt. And the fourth one is robustness. As I mentioned before, for it, a robust data pipeline is not a data pipeline that never fails, but instead it's a pipeline that can automatically recover from the failure, or it's a pipeline that can recover from the failure. And dependability is the fifth determinant. So if a data pipeline is serving several critical use cases, then it should be mature enough and it should be dependable. So in the right hand side, you can see a radar diagram of data pipelines. We have created this radar diagram based on the implementation priority of the 5 determinants. So for instance, if you take the blue line there, it shows data pipeline A2, which we studied. So for them, the first priority was for security, second was for scalability, third was for resiliency, fourth was for robustness, and the fifth is for dependability. And we see the similar pattern in all the 6 data pipelines that we studied. So the implementation priority is basically the same, but the levels are different in different data pipelines. And this is a maturity assessment model. As you can see in the figure, at level 1, we have one data pipeline called A2, where the implementation priorities for security, and the security is completely implemented there, but the other determinants like scalability, resiliency, robustness, dependability is not yet completely developed. And you can see the scale of the implementation in the graph that is shown in the level 1. And in level 2, we have one data pipeline labeled as C1, in which the security is completely implemented and the scalability is like partially implemented, and the other ones are like not that much there. They are in a very mature stage. And in the level 3, you can see that most of the data pipelines that we studied, like 3 of them out of 6, are mapped to this level 3, maturity level 3. So you can see A1, B1, and C2 are mapped to this particular level where security is implemented, scalability is implemented, resilience is there, but the robustness and dependability is not yet completely implemented. And in the level 5, you can see that security, scalability, resiliency is there. Robustness is also there, but it is not up to the mark. So yeah, and of course dependability is not completely implemented at this level. B2 is a data pipeline that is mapped to this level. And in level 5, which is the ideal level, all of these determinants will be completely implemented, but we don't have a data pipeline that can be mapped to this level. So, coming on to the details of maturity level 1, we can say that the data pipelines that are marked, that are mapped to this maturity level 1 are completely secure. I don't know if I will get enough time to go into each and every challenge, but I can say that most of the challenges associated with this maturity level are around scalability. So in order to move to the second maturity level, the data pipelines at this level needs to be scalable as well. And there are some suggestions for data pipeline maturity improvement, which I'm not going into the details. If any of you are interested, maybe we can discuss after this. And this is maturity level 2, where the data pipelines are completely secure and scalable. But the challenges here are mostly associated with the resiliency or flexibility of the data pipelines. And here also we have the suggestions for data pipeline maturity improvement. And for the maturity level 3, we have data pipelines that are secure, scalable, and resilient, but they are not robust or dependable. So the challenges are mostly associated with this robustness and dependability. And in the maturity level 4, the data pipelines will be secure, scalable, resilient, and robust, but they won't be dependable. So in maturity level 5, it will be secure, scalable, resilient, robust, and dependable. But the challenge here is that the time taken by the data pipeline grow like an upward slope, and it's very expensive to maintain such a data pipeline. And the data pipeline responsible or the data flow guardian will be overloaded with alarms if something unexpected happens. These are the challenges at maturity level 5. And I'm not saying that it's a completely developed model, but based on the use cases that we have studied, I think we could identify 5 maturity levels. Yeah, so as I have already explained or went through 2 different studies, I'll summarize what all things that we have discussed so far. We proposed a conceptual model for data pipelines that maximizes automation and minimizes human intervention. And we also discussed about the fault detection component and mitigation strategy, which is required to make the data pipeline robust. And then we discussed about this AI-powered fault tolerance in data pipelines and the 4-stage model. And then we moved to this maturity assessment model for the data pipelines. And this model was developed based on 5 determinants. And this model can be used to identify the current stage of the organization's data pipeline, and it can provide a roadmap for maturity improvement, because we already have identified some of the suggestions for improvement from one level to the other. So yeah, with that said, I'm wrapping up this talk. Thank you all for your kind attention. And if you have any questions, comments, reflections, feedback, etc., please feel free to type it in the chat box or drop me an email at aishwarya@chalmers.sc. Thank you.